so now I'm going to hand over to Yaz to give us a quick introduction about umbrella, because I think there'll be a lot of people in the room who aren't too sure what that is in this context.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of different stuff, including umbrella, and then pass it on to Roger to go into some of the details of the plan. But just want to say thank you so much, Bristol, for coming and offering this space and hosting us here tonight. Recording in process. Yeah, it's just amazing to see that there's like a full house here and some familiar faces as well. Yeah, there was a misunderstanding with the title for this event, which is quite a funny thing, but just to say that all of our events are called Revolution at Last. Take a step back. Just because of the scale of the change that we want to see. And I myself am coming from a place of a physics background. I learned about the long-term history of the carbon cycle and how unprecedented our perturbation is to our Earth system, how dramatic the changes will last for in all future scenarios. Now, we all probably know how serious this crisis is, but sometimes we forget that it's been 5 years since 2019, and we have to completely change everything in this next election cycle, which is why the focus of this conversation tonight is going to be about how we can input into this coming election. How can we influence it? Now, I came here some weeks ago to talk about the theory of change of Extinction Rebellion, to talk about what we've learned since 2019 on how bringing huge numbers of people to the seat of power day after day can suddenly make the impossible happen and change how we're governed, change the way that decisions are made. And tonight, I want to be able to talk about a tangible, concrete proposition for how we reach that final endpoint. And, we remember from Extinction Rebellion in 2019, in those days, we were filling rooms a bit like this. There was this magical feeling, and we can tap into that again. We can reconnect with that, and all it takes is for us just to see beyond outgrow our sort of traditional ideas of what we do in Extinction Rebellion and beyond, and to grow and to work this all out together. So some of the key points about Umbrella is a few months back, some key members of Just Stop Oil, some organisers in Momentum and other left groups came together and decided that we need a new strategy for system change. And Umbrella is this four-pronged strategy which consists of Just Stop Oil and 3 new movements, one of which is involved with social equality in the 99% versus the 1%. Robin Hood, it's called. One of them is youth demand. It involves organising our students who are helping to put together these occupations on campus in defence of the Palestinians who are being massacred at the moment. And finally, the last arm is with Assemble, which is what we're going to talk to you mostly about tonight. And, people will always have questions. We're going to have time for those in the breakout spaces, and we can debate theories, but there's something that I just want to put out there, which is, theory is all well and good, but it's only useful so that we can put it to the test. And what we're going to talk to you about tonight is a concrete plan, which is actionable, and it may all be rubbish. It may not go anywhere, but what I can tell you is that people around the country are giving it a try, and people are going for it. And we're here to talk about these assemblies and how this moment can be capitalised off. Just even here tonight, we can decide to set forward on 3 or 4 different constituency campaigns, if that's what we want to do, and change the course of this coming election here in Bristol. And people are going for it. Like, I've just been up in Birmingham. We hosted this big event with 100 people. I'm a Muslim. I've been in exile for so long, and I've never seen other Muslim faces and identities in the rooms that we're in. But I can tell you that on Sunday, we were tapping into something so strong. People are despairing over this genocide that's happening in Palestine. They're betrayed by the Labour Party, and I believe that they're being completely, it's unforgivable what they've done. And so they want to organise against them. And what we offer in Assemble is basically a methodology to build a campaign that's very unique, independent, citizen-led campaign that can actually get people organised, activated, excited, and win seats. But as you'll hear from Roger, it's more than just about winning the seats. And, that's the sort of Muslim community, but, a few days before that, we were in a rural town in Devon talking to some really normal local people who were fed up with the corruption that they're seeing in their council. They've completely had enough. And it broadly speaks to everyone, like nobody trusts politicians, nobody trusts political parties. And so this country is just waiting for a proposition to offer an alternative. And in Camden, in one of the most radical parts of the country, there's a man who will be running against Keir Starmer. His name is Andrew Feinstein. He's a noble, sincere man of Jewish and South African heritage who knows apartheid when he sees it, because he helped write the constitution of South Africa with Nelson Mandela. And he's devoted his life to fighting corruption in our politics, in the sales of arms, and is a strong advocate for Palestinian rights. And so, he helped write this. His work with Nelson Mandela involved building assemblies, and all of these people that I'm mentioning are just so passionate about assemblies. And the thing about XR is that we knew it from the start. Like, XR had it from the start. The answer resides in people coming together, listening to each other, being informed, and refusing to be divided. And that can happen on a local level with assemblies to build a program, to select a candidate to run in the election. It can happen on a national level with informed sortition jury like citizens' assemblies and an entire new chamber of government, a House of the People, which is this permanent home for inclusive decision making to rival the House of Commons and the House of Lords. And that's basically the top line picture of this. I'm going to pass on to Roger now. He's going to talk to you about the details. And then later in the day, we're going to do these breakouts. We're going to invite you all to join a WhatsApp chat for your local constituency and for the Bristol area. And we can see what we can get on the go. Roger, please.
Clap a bit more if you want. he's from XR, for God's sake. He's the XR guy, and I'm the ex-XR guy. Anyway, right, all right. Anyway, thank you very much for coming along. And I am not going to, be giving a grand speech about the climate. Done that 150 times already, so we're sort of done on that one, aren't we? It's 2024. Let's get that right. 2024, and we need to know what's going on, what the people are doing, what we could do, how we can all combine together, and how we can give it our best shot on whatever that best shot is going to be. So I'm going to talk mainly about the details, because I don't want to go, hey, we've got a great plan, and everyone goes away a bit confused about what it is. And it's a little bit complicated what's going on. So if you bear with me, it's just going to be a little bit technical, dare I say it. So just following on from what Yaz has been saying, the basic idea is all around the country, as you've just heard, as I'm sure you're aware, there's millions of people literally who are totally fed up with the political system, totally fed up with the political class. We all know the reasons. I'm not going to go through them all. And they're looking for some alternative means of collective expression in the upcoming election. Okay? So we're not, basically what that means is putting up independent candidates. But I don't want you all going away tonight thinking, oh, this is another little narrow idea of putting up an independent, like used to do in 10, 20 years ago. There's something fundamentally different going on, which is to put up independent candidates as an expression and a creation of a new social movement in Britain for fundamental system change. Okay? That's what I'm talking to you about. And the means of doing it, one of the means of doing it is going to be to put radical independence up in the elections and to mobilise our communities. And as Yaz was saying, there's a whole bunch of different groups coming together. So I don't, again, want to give the impression that I'm coming from Just Up Oil or XR or Assemble. I'm basically communicating to you the beginnings of a movement that has many roots. And we are just in service to this emergent movement, right? That's what we're here today to say, okay? So it's not about me, don't panic. Right, okay, so arguably there's four groups. First of all, as Yas has said, we've seen this massive upsurgence of rage and horror about what's been happening in Gaza. I was reading about it on the train. I've read about it lots of times. It's utterly, utterly horrific, isn't it? And the sense of helplessness and the sense of disgust is across the board in this country. And the Muslim community has organised like never before in our history. They're organising massive demonstrations, hundreds of thousands of people, and they're organising standing as independents in the election. Those of you that know about this stuff know what's happened in Oldham, you know, in the council elections, in Birmingham, in many other places in East London. So these people are new, right, to politics, many of them, but they've been driven into it, doing this because of their horror about what's happening, a horror that we all share as well, of course. So that's number one. Number two is, dare I say it, 200,000 people have left the Labour Party in the last 2 or 3 years. These 200,000 people, maybe it's one of two of you, right? You know, joined during the Corbyn years and either left or, as euphemism goes, been asked to leave, right? They're not happy. If you notice that, they are not happy. They're homeless, they're politically homeless, and they want to see some form of organised, coherent left mobilisation in this country as an alternative to the Labour Party, which has completely betrayed its roots, has it not? Right? It's horrific. It's the second thing that's horrific. The third thing is the dear old climate movement. Do you remember them? That's us. That's many of us. We have been battling away now since 2018, going to the government and saying, guys, it's common sense, decarbonise. You know, it's not complicated, is it? And you know what they've done? Nothing. And we're fed up. We're fed up. You know, in Just Stop Oil, we had thousands of arrests, 150 people have been to prison. Yes, I've got my tag on. Make sure I leave by 9 o'clock, please. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble. Okay? You see what I mean? It's no good. And it's no good because we need system change. That's what we've come to the conclusion of. And this was the original idea, of course, at the beginning of Extinction Rebellion. Right? It's not just about the odd policy. We're not going to get policy change till we have system change. We need a constitutional reorganisation in this country. That's what it concretely means, right? And then the fourth group is like these people in Chard. So you know where Chard is? You know, in deepest Somerset, you know? So the woman from Chard phoned us up and said, we've got a Stalinist Lib Dem state in Chard, right? The Lib Dems, no disrespect to Lib Dems, but they have been in charge of Chard since whenever, 1650. You know what this sort of thing is like? You know, the old feudal situation. Anyway, it's corrupt as hell. They've run it for generations. They're all intermarried, apparently. They're all doing things with the police. I'm not joking. They stood an independent. They sent the police around to harass the independent. It's interesting, right? They're ready to go. They've got all the women over 50. They're great, aren't they? All the women over 50. That's the demographics and lead the revolution. They're all on the go in Chard, right? They've got their Facebook groups. They're ready to go. We went like 3 or 4 days ago. They've almost chosen a candidate. They want to express their frustration with not being listened to, ignored, treated as if they're stupid, and generally insulted, right? In addition to the collapse of the social services, the collapse of the social state, all this stuff, right? They've had 3 floods there, you know, For every Chard, there's another 100 constituencies in this country that are waiting to do something which is not them. You understand what I'm saying, right? Everyone knows the feeling in this country at the moment. So these are the groups, right? You put it in various different ways. And they're all coming together, which is really interesting and slightly scary, because they're all coming into the room, you know, looking at each other going, you're not like me, sort of thing. But that's the plan, isn't it? That's how you build a social movement. Okay, so all these groups are coming together, and in the next month or two, hopefully there's going to be some national brand. And as I said, this is not our idea. We're simply inputting into it in a spirit of service to bring what we can bring. And what we bring in XR and what we bring in GSO, as you know, is good, respectful organisation. Can't be understated how important that is, right? We also bring in a method of mobilizing called assemblies, which we all know is an amazing way to empower people. So at the moment, there's probably about 50 constituencies in this country that have already chosen radical independence, right, from various progressive left groups, Gaza groups, etc. So it's happening anyway, just in case you don't like it, it's going to happen anyway, okay? And then, since we started Assemble, which is this, offshoot, as Yaz says, of the umbrella GSO space, we've now got 10, 15 full-time people, we've got £100,000 of donations, and we've got 100 constituencies that we're in the process of mobilising for, broadly speaking. We've done that in 6 weeks. That's because lots of people are interested, right? So what's the actual plan? All right. So as I said, when I'm giving you this plan, don't think, oh, it's about putting an independent up. What it's about is putting an independent up as a means of mobilising our communities, right? You get that, right? It doesn't actually matter, as we all know, if we're honest with ourselves, whether there's 5 independents in Parliament or 10 or 15, right? Because the whole thing's done. But what we're doing is going to communities and saying, right, let's hold some assemblies. So we've got a nice organised, JSO XR, structural approach, right? We have an online meeting, we have an offline meeting like with this. There was 160 people in Hove the other day. There was 60 people in Falmouth last week, and they're all coming together. And the question is do you want to put an independent candidate up, in wherever it's going to be, like, Bristol North? That's what we've got to decide today, okay? Then once that happens, you have a launch event, and we invite all our allies to that launch event. So we've got Peace and Justice, Jeremy Corbyn's organisation, we've got Animal Rising, we've got Momentum people, we've got the World Transform people, we've got, the climate space people, we're moving into the housing sort of sector people, and all these people are going, right, all right, we'll put it on our mailing list, on our chats, and email people and say, in Bristol North or wherever it is, there's going to be a candidate, and you'll get 100 people in the room, right? Maybe 200, maybe 50, but it's enough people to start a campaign. Okay, and then we come on to the fundamental thing that's exciting about what we're doing, which is this is not a standard left-wing, political party routine. You probably experienced this where you get 10 Marxists in a pub, in Eastern or something, and they go, we know the truth, and we're going to have a political party, and we're going to decide the candidate between the 5 of us, and we're going to have a programme, and then we're going to go out to the good people of Eastern and tell them what they should think, and they should vote for us. And if you've noticed, it doesn't work. Yeah, have you noticed that one? 40 years of trying to organise in that sort of way. So we reverse the whole relationship. We go out to the good people of Eastern or whatever, and we say, we want to hear from you on what you want a candidate to stand for if one was to stand in Eastern, right? Reverse it. So people come into the assembly, and many of you have gone to assemblies, right? You have about half an hour on why things aren't that great in Bristol, nationally, internationally, and then you have another half hour on what you want to see happen, what you want a community-based candidate to stand for. This is an entirely new way of doing politics, as you all know. And it infuses people because it's not bullshitting them. They are genuinely participating in the creation of a political project. And then the pure model is they do the same with a candidate. So instead of someone flying in, from Oxford with PPE and all that business going, I'm great, vote for me, you're saying, who is it in the Eastern community who's really cool? Who is it that's a local hero? Who's a charismatic, hardworking, ordinary person who could represent ordinary people in Eastern, right? And this was done in Redbridge. My friend Chanel Johnson, who's going to stand as an independent, she's a black councillor. She left the Labour Party. She got 700 people in the room, right, from the black community in East London to celebrate their local heroes. So what we can do is say, you choose, right? That local community chooses. Now, obviously, there's variations on the theme. Some amazing person like Andrew Feinstein, that next Nelson Mandela, you know, all this sort of thing, then obviously, you know, there's an obvious candidate, you can have that candidate. But the central idea here is people are enabled to participate in the creation of their own programme for that candidate and choose that candidate. And there's a big hustings event. They did this sort of thing in South Devon, I don't know if you know, with 300 or 400 people in the room. They heard the candidates and then they chose the candidate that the ordinary people are going to vote for. So this is a big, massive experiment, but this is what XR and JSO and this whole sector, you know, of social movements have been saying for 5 years. So this is the moment when we're going to make it real. And we're going to have a go at making it real rather than going through the motions, if you see what I mean. Okay, so...
Sorry, Roger, do you need another couple of minutes? Are you happy we open it up for questions?
I haven't finished yet.
Okay.
It's complicated business. I need 10 more minutes. Where are we? Yeah, 10 more minutes and then I'll be in. Oh, 5. Right, okay. Got them. Anyway, that's the plan, okay? That's it. Now, so I'm going to say, like, so these, there's a whole bunch of, you know, 15 documents will be sent to you on WhatsApp, you know, so all the nerdy ones of you can read up, you know, what you do at the end of meetings and all this sort of stuff. But that's the direction of travel. And these community campaigns will coalesce around their region so that just as when we set up XR, we got groups to help other groups set up. You see what I mean? So people are helping each other all the time. It's not some big top-down thing. Okay, so I just want to do 5 minutes on this broader strategy of creating a social movement. Because you might be thinking, yeah, that's cool, but it's not just about that, as I said. What it's about is creating a movement for system change in this country, given that 60% of the British population wants fundamental change according to various surveys. So what's it going to look like? We are going to be gathering the data, hopefully of hundreds of thousands of people, right? As we'll show in a minute, loads of people are going to start giving donations, you know, regular donations. So when we go and do these assemblies, we won't be saying, hey, let's do an assemble campaign. We're saying, let's set up a social movement that's going to stand in the election and then move into civil resistance, right? We're not going to use that posh word, civil resistance, but that's going to be the direction of travel. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but what we do know is we're going to have a House of the People. So all of you are familiar with the whole Citizens' Assembly idea. I think that's right? So when we set up XR, you know, we were looking, people, this is always a little bit embarrassing because I was just saying, like, you know all those aims and principles stuff, right? Gail sort of came and suggested all that in 10 minutes. And we said, yeah, that sounds all right, Gail. So that's the origin of then. Sorry to demystify it. Anyway, you know, it wasn't sent down by God. But the point is what was it? Yeah, maybe it was. But it's the same. It was the same with the 3 demands, right? It wasn't like we had a 2-year consultation process. There were 6 of us in the room, and someone said to me, and I'm not joking, they said, "Oh, Roger, what do you think the 3rd demand would be?" And I, "Oh, let's do citizens' assemblies." And they're, "All right then," and they put that down. See what I mean? Because in 2018, people didn't know. People didn't know, did they? And we should be really proud that we've put this on the national agenda. Millions of people now know about citizen assemblies, right? In that meeting, everyone's going, "What's citizen assembly, Roger?" I was going, "Don't worry, it's a really good idea. Put it down," sort of thing. All right, let's go for it. So, but the big problem, sorry, I'm going to 2 more minutes. The big problem, as we know, is we go on a demonstration, we go down to London, and we knock on the door of power, and you know what we do? We go, "Oh, please, government, give us a citizens' assembly." And you know what they do? They go, "No," right? And you know what happens next? We go home. You know that routine? And then the following year, you knock on the door and say, "Hey, we want citizens' assemblies," and they say no, and we go, "Oh," and then we go home again, right? We're over that bollocks. What we're going to say next is, "We want a citizens' assembly. You're not going to give it us? Fine, we'll do it ourselves," right? We're going to do it ourselves because it's the end of the fucking world, have you noticed, right? We do not have time to be messing around going, "Oh, they didn't give it us." We're going to do it ourselves. It's not that complicated, right? We need about £1 million. We need, you know, Gary Lineker to shake everyone's hands on the way in, you know, some medieval costumes, all this sort of thing. And we're going to have our own parliament. And the Sortition Foundation, who know all about the maths, right, they're going to select people, and people are going to be selected from all these assemblies around the country that point candidates up. So it's going to be a genuine, organic, bottom-up, let's all get down to London, you know, nurses, electricians, and all this sort of thing, and they are going to deliberate on what Parliament is deliberating on, right? Except they're going to come up with what people really want. So when Parliament are going, oh, there's no money for childcare, the House of the People will be going, actually, there is, we just need to tax the rich. You know? That's, you know what I mean? Do that. So that's the general direction of travel, and then what the Sortition Foundation has suggested, and various other progressive and radical groups, is next April, everyone goes to London. You know that one? Everyone goes to London, and we say, right, we've got 5 social demands on climate, you know, on social stuff, on Gaza, all these different things from the movements. And we have one revolutionary demand, sorry for that word, but it is, which is to get rid of the bloody House of Lords, right? Been trying since 1905. It's time for it to go. And we want it replaced with us, the ordinary people of this country. The House of the People replaces the House of Lords. Legally binding citizens' assemblies, because that's the only way we're going to get some rationality into the British political class. See what I mean? That's the direction of travel. We're going to do all various other little bits and pieces, work with the unions, all this sort of stuff, but I'm going to get into trouble because, you know, it's a process. Anyway, so I'm going to stop and say that's the direction of travel, Freudian slip. And I invite you all to have some faith, like we did at the beginning of XR, and go for it. Thank you very much.